Are you ready to step off the porch and smoke with the big dogs and finally become a gatekeeper of real barbecue? Well, I've got the smoker for you, and it's not gonna leave you as broke as John Wick buying ammo. So look, with all jokes aside, you don't need an offset smoker to be taken seriously as a pitmaster. Honestly, it takes a uniquely crazy person to want to sit with one of these things for hours on hours, mastering that craft of barbecue. But nonetheless, it doesn't make you a gatekeeper to real barbecue. Now, I will say there's something intimate and rewarding about sitting with one of these things for hours and hours and mastering that craft that I don't get from other smokers. And that's okay, it's a different experience. They're all tools in my tool belt that I use. But when it comes to offset smokers for the money, this is one of the best you can buy. And much like choosing a partner, if you don't get the right one, it's not gonna be very rewarding and there's not gonna be very many happy endings. I learned quickly that quality came with a very high price tag. And after hours and hours of research, I finally landed on the Old Country Brazos. Now the Brazos is made by Old Country and they're located in Laredo, Texas. And with being in Texas, they're steeped in rich tradition of Texas barbecue. And we know how Texas is about their barbecue. If they're gonna do anything right, it's gonna be their barbecue. And they've been in business for over 20 years, so they're doing something right. Now this smoker is not just great for backyard barbecuers and self-proclaimed pitmasters like you and me, but this is actually trusted by professional pitmasters and competitors. So you can trust that you're getting a good quality product. Now let's jump into why I recommend this smoker to anyone coming to the dark side. And it's gonna be dark because you're gonna be spending hours and hours with this thing in the dark, up barbecue. It's gonna be fun, but it's a process and you'll learn to love it. Because this thing is far from set it and forget it. This smoker is built like a tank from its heavy gauge construction to its heat retention, and it's designed for serious barbecuers, but you won't have to sell a kidney to buy one. So the first reason that I'm gonna recommend the Brazos is due to the heavy construction. So the most important thing that you wanna look for when you're looking for an offset smoker is the thickness of the gauge. This particular smoker is a 1/4 inch steel, which means it's gonna be super durable and it's gonna retain heat amazingly. Managing a fire on this thing is gonna be so much easier than a 1/16 inch smoker. The trade-off to having a 1/4 inch steel smoker is this thing's heavy as f. The second reason that I love this smoker, and I'm gonna recommend it to someone getting into offset smoking, is the price. Most smokers of this quality are easily $1,800 plus. And unless you get on Facebook Marketplace and you get really lucky, you're not gonna find something at this price. Now the third reason I'm gonna recommend the Brazos is it's very versatile. Now this thing's primarily used for smoking food, right? But in the Firebox, it actually moonlights as a grill. In the Firebox, there's actually a metal grate that you can use. What I like to do is I'll smoke the steak in the chamber, and then towards the end, I'll open up that Firebox, put that grate in, and I'll sear off those steaks. And using this thing means I don't have to break out my Weber kettle, and that saves me a lot of time and charcoal. Now there's a number of other reasons that I would recommend this smoker. Those things include the fact that this thing's manufactured and hand welded here in the United States, pretty much all of it. It gets amazing reviews, and you get a really spacious Firebox, and the grates on the inside are super versatile, and I'll get into some of these as I walk you through all of the components of the smoker. Offset smokers are very simple and straightforward, and we're gonna start with the Firebox. So this Firebox, like the rest of the smoker, it's built and constructed really well. It's all hand welded and great quality. So you'll notice as soon as I open it that I have this grate here. This grate's what makes this smoker so versatile. What I like to do is I'll smoke steaks in this chamber. I'll bring them right here and I'll sear them. But I usually keep this out while I'm smoking, obviously because it's in the way if not. Let's go ahead, take this grate out, and I'll show you the rest of the Firebox. Now this thing slides out like butter on a hot skillet. Very smooth. So this is the part of the smoker that you're gonna become the most familiar and close with. You're gonna be forced to because this is where the wood goes. You're gonna spend all of your time managing the fire with this Firebox. Now down in here, you'll see this charcoal grate. Now this is a subject of some debate because a lot of people will take it out and a lot of people will leave it in. Me personally, I leave it in because I noticed that my wood burns a lot better when I leave it in. What I find happens if I take it out is that I have to move the fire around a lot more in the bottom of this Firebox because I start to smother the wood. With this thing, the wood will burn, fall underneath of it, and I don't have to worry about it. That's what I do, but
you can do well with
personally, that's what works best for me, so I'm gonna keep doing that. So the last feature that I'll point out on this Firebox is this flat top here. This thing's pretty cool. This flat top here is used to keep food warm, but what I end up doing with it What I'll do is I'll take this wood and I'll leave it on top. The reason I do that is because wood has to heat up before it can combust. So what this is essentially doing is it's preheating the wood. So when I pop it in that firebox, it's gonna spread faster than gossip at a family reunion. And that saves a lot of time and helps with fire management. So if you wanna do that, you can do that. That's a little tip for you. The door is also made really well. It's thick. And you have this damper here. You use that to adjust the airflow through the smoker. Honestly, what I end up doing is I end up closing this damper and I'll just use the door and crack it. I don't actually use the damper on the door. Just how I use it, it's how I gotten comfortable. So do what you like. Now, if you know what you're doing in the firebox, this cooking chamber is where the magic happens. Now, it's constructed of heavy gauge, which helps maintain the temperatures, and it's really spacious. I think there's about 1,100 square inches of space in here, and you could fit quite a bit of meat on this thing. Comfortably, I would say you could fit 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd say at least 5 racks of ribs on the bottom, and on top maybe 2 more. So you could set 7, and you could probably fit 2 really large whole packers in this thing of brisket, and I would say probably 6 whole butts. That's a lot of food to fit on a smoke. So inside here you have these 2 grates, and these grates are really awesome. They move really well, so they're constructed perfectly. So more times than not, I take this top rack out because I don't use it. I like to have access to my food here. But it is great to have the extra space if you want to keep things warm, or if you want to cook a lot of smaller things like sausages and stuff. I don't usually like having meat drip down onto my other meat. So this chamber is made super well, doesn't allow for very much heat escape, but the heat consistency from right to left could be better. And the reason that I say that is because if you look here on the bottom right, there's a baffle. And what that baffle does is it pushes the heat down into the bottom of the cooking chamber, and it comes up right here, causing the center of this smoker to be the hot spot. It is what it is. But on the newer generations, I think they're about $1,800, they give you the option to remove that baffle. Now what a lot of people do is they actually go in here and they remove that baffle with a welder. I don't usually cook a lot of stuff right here. My prime spot is right here. But if I cooked more food on it in the center and I felt like it was that big of a temperature difference, I'd entertain the idea of moving that. I'll link a couple videos in the description that shows you how to remove that baffle. But also what I love about these grates is the bottom one slides out also. So if you do got meat on top, you can slide this thing out and it gives you plenty of room to work with your food. Next, let's talk about this lid. Very heavy. I've seen people put little felt here to keep it from bumping on that. I don't give a shit about that. But if you do, I've not noticed it bothering it, but whatever. It has a spot here for a thermometer. You can drill more spots. This is the hot spot, so I'm guessing that's why they added that one right there. I cook here, so if you used one, put one here. But I use a Bluetooth thermometer for the most part. I don't really need to use a thermometer on the lid. Next is this table. I love this table because when you're storing this thing, you can easily put it away, right? But made very simple, yet really well. You can hold a lot of weight on that. And that's pretty much it for the cooking chamber. So the last component we'll talk about is the smokestack. This entire smoker is hand welded in Laredo, Texas. But oddly enough, the smokestack is made in Mexico. Now I'm not 100% sure why they would do that. And the only reason I knew it is because there's a sticker on it that said it's made in Mexico. And the only reason that I can think that they would do that is maybe it has the least amount of effect on the heat retention throughout the cooking chamber. I don't know. What I wish was this thing was a little taller so that this damper made more of a difference. This damper, I don't really use this damper much at all. I'll pretty much leave it wide open, but because it's so short, it doesn't really pull a lot of that heat through there. So adjusting this doesn't change it a whole lot, but you can add extenders to it. I just don't feel like it affects my cook that much. What I love the most about the smokestack is that it's level with the grates in the smoke. The reason that's important to me is because as that smoke travels across that smoker, it's gonna go out at level of the food. So you're gonna have a uniformed smoke exposure to the meat, and you get a much more even heat throughout the smoke. That's just my 2 cents on it, but that was important to me when I was looking for a smoker, is that this was level with the grate. Now that we've talked about the major components of the smoker, let me show you how I light it and stabilize the temperature. Have one of these because this thing gets so greasy. But let's go. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna show you how I like to light this smoker. There's a lot of different ways, but essentially, if you can get your fuel to burn clean and stabilize your temperatures, do it the way that you can get that to happen. So this is how I do it. First thing you want to do is take one of these chimneys and we want to fill it up with charcoal. You might not need to fill it up all the way. I would probably start with doing about halfway on this larger one. All right, so that pretty much did that bag in there. Next, I like to take one of these tumbleweeds here. We're gonna stick it underneath of the chimney here. And we'll get that charcoal lit, and I'll see you when that's done. Okay, so this charcoal's burning clean. We can go ahead and throw it in the bottom of this firebox. Get it pretty even out there. You're gonna put some wood on top of it here in a second. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna take 2 pieces of wood. You wanna try to cut your wood to about half the size of the Firebox. But more importantly, make sure that they're equal in size, or pretty close. Here in a second, once that wood catches, we're gonna shut this Firebox up and then we'll manage the fire using the dampers or the door. Whew, hot as hell. It's like 95 out here. But we got this fire running pretty good. The wood's caught fire. We're gonna go ahead and shut the door to the Firebox. Once that smoke subsides a little bit, we'll go ahead and shut the cooking chamber. So we really are just looking for clean burning wood. Let's just go ahead and give that a little bit of oxygen there. We don't need to have it wide open. Once the smoke dies down just a little, we'll shut this cooking chamber. And then we'll start managing temperature. All right, we're gonna go ahead, shut this cooking chamber door. You're gonna notice some smoke coming from that Firebox. That's because the wood is starting to die down a little bit because you're cutting off some of that oxygen. That's normal, it's fine. Don't throw more wood on at this point. It's gonna get too hot. Just be patient, let the wood stabilize, catch fire. It'll burn down to some coal, so just be patient. So now that we've got that burning where we want it, we're gonna take a Bluetooth thermometer just so we can monitor the temperature in here. I'm gonna try getting it to about 250. So let's say I'm cooking on this left side. I'm gonna toss this right there. Shut that. And then we'll make any adjustments we need to make to the dampers or anything once this thermometer reveals that temperature. All right, so we're sitting at about 183 consistently. I have the door wide open, so what that tells me is that I need to add more fuel. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and throw another log on because I wanna bring that fuel up because I wanna hit 250. I'm using oak today. So what happened after throwing that extra piece of log on there is I pretty much stabilized at about 200. It didn't bring my temperature up to quite where I would like it. What actually happened is I threw too little charcoal in the Firebox in the beginning because I didn't want to bust open a new bag. So what I've had to do is I've had to throw a little bit more wood in there as I've tried to get it started. And that's just perfect because that is very indicative of what the process is like cooking with these offset smokers. Every piece of wood that you cook with is a little different than the last piece, and you're gonna have to kind of roll with the punches here. So what I did is I threw an extra log on there. We're gonna let that wood catch. Then we're gonna shut the Firebox off and we're gonna bring that temperature up because we want to hit 250. We finally got this thing to 250 to 255. It probably took about 45 minutes. So like I said, it's not a quick process. But essentially to recap, you take a chimney full of charcoal, you light it, you use that as your bed of fuel, then you place wood on top of that, allow that wood to ignite really well, burn down a little bit, shut off the Firebox, keep the door open, and then shut your cooking chamber. You're gonna notice a little bit of smoke. That's okay, you've reduced the oxygen, it's gonna stabilize. Then from there, you can start monitoring your temperatures and then do what you need to do, you know. For me, it involved putting more wood in the Firebox because I didn't use enough charcoal in the beginning. But as long as you're able and willing to make adjustments, you're gonna get good at this stuff. It's not hard, it's not rocket science. If it was, I wouldn't be doing it. And that's pretty much it for lighting and maintaining that fire. What I would do, once my temperature starts to drop a little bit, I'll take this wood, I'll toss it on that fire, I'll let it ignite, shut it back down, let it keep going. The temperature almost never fluctuates. I might stay within 10 to 15 degrees, and that's usually because I'm putting more wood on the fire. But that process should be simple enough to get you started. So look, let's talk tips. So tip number one is when you're buying this thing, that you go put eyes on the smoke. The reason that I recommend that, when I was purchasing this thing, I went to a couple places, and Buc-ee's and Academy Sports are the primary places that I know that sell this smoker. And in every one of those locations, every smoker they had is a little different. When I say a little different, I don't mean that the major components were different, but one would have different caster wheels than the other. One would have no caster wheels. And if you buy one without any wheels, you are because they are extremely heavy. The people at Academy Sports, they had some teenagers come out and try help lifting it into the truck.
I broke my back. What do you mean by that? Your back is broken. What, a vertebrae or what portion? Spinal.
It was a mess. So I got lucky and found one with the big wheels and the caster wheels on the front. So it moves pretty easy. But I saw some with no wheels. I saw some with a set of the 2 wheels. Get one with 4 wheels. Also, take a really good look at all the welds. You got to understand these things are hand welded by individual people. And you don't want to go buy one that looks like it was welded by Ray Charles.
$2,000 and it's yours. Take it home with you.
You know, check basic things. Make sure when you shut the chamber door, it seals. When you shut the Firebox door, it seals. Just check all of those. Make sure it has every component that's supposed to be there. Because if you don't, you run the risk of having something that leaks more than a cheap garden hose. So if there's problems and you don't find them till you get home, it's almost more hassle to send it back or have someone come out and fix it. So just go to the store in person and put eyes on it. So tip number 2 is don't overload the Firebox with wood.
Why is the fire so big? Why do you make the fire so big? Let's look at that shit. It's a mother ridiculous, guy. The fire's too mother big.
It retains heat so well that you don't need to use a lot of wood. After you throw a little bit of charcoal in there, light it, and then throw some wood on there, you're throwing like a log or two on every 30, 45 minutes. So what happened to me is when I first got this thing, I loaded it full of wood, put charcoal in there. It was like 2 hours before I could even cook with it because the temperature was so hot because I overloaded it with wood. Tip number 3 is to cover this thing if it's going to be outside. Just like a cast iron skillet, this thing can rust, and it will rust if it's exposed to moisture. I'm fortunate enough to be able to put mine in my garage. If you're not, just buy a cover for it and cover it. If you treat this thing right, your great grandkids are going to be using this at their barbecues. Can you imagine smoking with something that your ancestors smoked with? I mean, this is a super cool heirloom, so take care of it, keep it covered, and it's going to reward you with great barbecue for years and years to come. And there you have it. If you're into smoking, you love smoking, you like the process of smoking, then get you an offset smoker. The Old Country Brazos is a no-brainer. It's a great investment. You're going to get a lot of great cooks out of it. If you found this video helpful and you want more tips and tricks for in the future, then make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you can get more videos like this.